How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing body work on the 1978 King Cobra project. It's been on the back burner lately. I've been working on the GTO, trying to get that all finished up. But since that's almost finished, I decided to jump back onto the King Cobra project and try to get that a little closer to being ready to paint. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. So we're starting with the passenger side fender. It's not in terrible condition, but it is full of door dings. And if it's anything like the rest of the sheet metal, a good coat of rust is hiding underneath that primer as well. So before we paint it, all that's got to get corrected. I'm using an orbital sander to take this down to bare metal, which I don't really recommend. I mean, don't get me wrong, it worked great, but it just took a long time to do this whole fender. Regardless, the job got done and I was able to move on to stopping that rust. Even though this looks like a clean piece of metal, there is quite a bit of pitting that the rust can hide in and eventually bleed through your paint or primer. So to prevent that, I'm coating the whole thing in this rust dissolver chemical, just as a little extra protection underneath the primer I'll add later. To fix these dings, I'm just using body filler. There's not much of a process to this. I just circled all the imperfections with the marker, and since it was already down to bare metal, it was pretty easy to just slap it on, I guess. Of all the things I show in my videos, by far the most kickback I've ever gotten is with using body filler. I've heard other car content creators talk about this. It seems like some people are under the impression that any body filler at all is not the right way to do it. And while you can overuse and abuse it, I've been taught that anything under 1/4 of an inch deep can be filled with Bondo without any cracks appearing or chunks falling off down the road. So that's the rule that I usually use when it comes to body filler. With that sanded down, I'm now applying the glazing. The reason I'm doing this is because even after all those dings were corrected, it still felt a little wavy, which this stuff will fix. But also, since this panel had a lot of rust on it, there's quite a few pits left in the metal. And since it's almost impossible to find and fill every pit individually, it's much easier to just coat the whole thing and then sand most of it off. This right here is when I realized that I might have applied the glazing just a little too thick. I mean, it's not going to ruin the finish or anything, but the block sanding ended up taking way longer than usual. But after a very long time using a block sander, I was happy with how it all looked and felt and was finally able to move on to priming it. So now moving on to the hood that doesn't require that much body work. Some of you may be wondering why the hood is straight while the top of the fender, literally right next to it, is full of dings. But this is actually the case on a lot of older cars. The reason there's dings on the top of the fender is that over the years while this car was being worked on, the mechanics would sit their tools on the fender, and over time dings would begin to stack up. And since the hood is usually open during repairs, nothing gets sat on it and there's much less damage. So I've been sanding this down to metal for a while now, and I was wondering what these lines were in it, and I wasn't able to put it all together yet until I got the whole thing sanded, and I realized that that's what's left of the decal that was put on all the hoods of the King Cobras. And some of that still remains ingrained in the metal there, which is really cool. Even though the snake part is a little hard to see, the wings coming off of it are plain as day. Now I'm not sure how the decal, which was placed on top of the paint and primer, left a mark on the metal. So if you have any theories on that, I'd love to hear them. So right here, I got a dent underneath the hood, one of those dents that press outward. And after thinking of a few ways to straighten it out, I decided to just hit it with a hammer, and that worked pretty good. Then after that, I just added a little filler on it, sanded it down, and after one last pat down, I was confident that the hood was ready for primer. Now for the primer, I used filler primer, which I'm hoping filled all the rust pits, allowing me to skip the glazing step. And then I added a top coat of white primer to keep the color consistent on the car. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button, and if you want to follow along with this project and others, you can do that by subscribing. I know I'm usually in person when I do these outros, but it's currently dark outside and I really just want to get this video finished. But anyways, you guys have a great rest of your day or night, and I'll see you next time.